Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to pull out the most useful, actionable ideas from the sources you shared. And today, we're tackling a really big question, one that probably affects all of us. When you hit a wall, how much of your success is already baked in, and how much can you actually, build?
Yeah, it's fundamental. And this deep dive takes us right into the work of Carol Dweck, the psychologist. We're looking at her book, Mindset, the New Psychology of Success. Specifically, the core idea is about, well, the power of what you believe about your own intelligence and your abilities. Where do they come from?
It's so interesting because it's not just like positive thinking, it's actual cognitive psychology about how we reach our potential. Dweck's main point seems to be this split, right? Between two core beliefs, the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. And this difference apparently shapes, well, almost everything.
Everything. How you learn, how you handle failure, your relationships, even your happiness. Think of it like the operating system for your brain.
Operating system.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If the OS says your hard drive, your intelligence is fixed, you act one way. You conserve, you protect. But if it says you can upgrade, you learn, you expand.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Starting with that first one, the static view. What exactly is the fixed mindset?
So the fixed mindset is built on the belief that your basic qualities, your intelligence, your talents, even your personality, they're just fixed traits. You've got a certain amount, and that's kind of it.
You get what you're given.
Pretty much. And this belief system, it shifts your whole goal away from learning and towards validation, proving you're smart enough, talented enough.
And what does that do to someone psychologically? Believing your ability is just static like that.
Well, it gears everything towards performance, looking good. If my intelligence is fixed, I absolutely have to keep proving I have enough. So people with this mindset often develop this deep aversion to effort.
Wait, aversion to effort, that sounds backwards. Don't we usually value hard work?
We say we do, but in the fixed mindset, effort is actually threatening. It's like an ego defense. If you have to try really hard at something, the thinking goes, you must not be naturally good at it. You must not be smart enough.
Ah, okay. So effort exposes a potential lack of innate talent.
Exactly. So the behaviors you see are things like avoiding challenges, where they might fail and look bad, fearing failure, like intensely, and needing that constant praise from others to feel secure in their abilities. They dread hearing themselves say, I gave it my all and I still wasn't good enough.
Yeah, you see that. I mean, think about the student who bombs a math test and just says, I'm just not a math person. And then they just stop trying in that class.
Precisely. It's not laziness necessarily. It's that the effort itself feels like a confirmation of their perceived limitation.
Okay, so that's the fixed view. Protecting what you think you have. What about the other side?
Right. So if the fixed mindset is about protecting an identity, the growth mindset is all about expanding it.
Tell us about that one, the developmental view, where ability can change.
The growth mindset starts from a different place entirely. It's a belief that abilities, intelligence, skills, they're dynamic. They can be developed through dedication, good strategies, hard work, learning from others. The focus shifts completely. It's not about being good, it's about getting better.
Okay, that sounds more optimistic, obviously. But how does that actually play out when someone faces a real setback, like a project blows up at work or a relationship ends badly?
That reaction to adversity, that's the absolute key difference. The fixed mindset tends to crumble or blame. Failure feels like a final verdict. But the growth mindset sees failure differently. It's not a judgment, it's information. Specific, actionable data about what didn't work.
So failure is part of the process.
Essential to the process. They actually embrace challenges because they understand that struggling is how you improve. They seek out feedback, even criticism, because they see it as a guide, not an attack.
But hang on, isn't there a risk here? Dweck talks about this, right? Is the growth mindset just telling people to try harder? Because just grinding away without changing strategy can lead to burnout.
That's a really crucial point, and it gets us beyond the simple definition. Dweck warns about what she calls the false growth mindset.
False growth mindset?
But yeah, it's where people pay lip service to effort. Oh, I believe in hard work. But they really only praise or reward the final outcome, the perfect score, the successful project. A true growth mindset values the process. It recognizes that smart strategies and persistence matter just as much as sheer effort. Banging your head against a wall is effort, but it's not smart.
Right.
The growth mindset learns from hitting the wall, figures out why, and then finds a ladder or another way around.
So it's not just grit, it's intelligent persistence. Learning from what you're doing, okay, this framework really starts to make sense when you apply it. Here's where it gets really interesting. How does this play out in different parts of life? Education, for instance.
Well, in education, the results are pretty clear. Students with a growth mindset tend to do better over the long haul. Not necessarily because they start out smarter, but because their focus is truly on learning the material, on mastery.
Not just chasing the grade.
Exactly. The good grade becomes a natural result of genuinely understanding things rather than the sole objective.
And sports.
Right.
That seems like a domain where natural talent is talked about all the time.
Huge difference there, too. Think about athletes who reach the very top. They often have this mindset. They don't let a bad game define them. They're the ones analyzing game film, working relentlessly on their weaknesses. A loss isn't proof they're bad. It's information for how to train better for next time.
So they don't internalize it as, I'm a loser.
Right. And think about business, especially leadership. This is massive. A manager with a fixed mindset might avoid risks, stick to the tried and true, because they fear failure and its reflection on them.
Which stifles innovation.
Completely. But a growth-minded leader, they foster resilience. They understand that tackling big, complex problems means you will have setbacks. So they create an environment where it's safe to experiment, to try things that might not work initially. They reward the smart effort, the learning from mistakes, not just the easy wins.
That makes sense. And does this apply to personal relationships too? It seems like it would.
Definitely. When things get tough, maybe a communication breakdown or a disagreement over money, the fixed mindset often looks for blame. This person is flawed, or we're just incompatible. It sees the problem as permanent.
We just aren't meant to be.
Exactly that kind of thinking. But someone with a growth mindset approaches it like a system that needs work, a skill to be developed together. They ask things like, okay, how can we communicate better? Or what strategies can we learn to handle this stress? They focus on improving the dynamic, not just labeling it as broken.
Okay, so if we connect this to the bigger picture, it sounds like the mindset you hold basically determines your internal story when things go wrong.
That's a great way to put it. The moment adversity hits a rejection, a mistake, a big obstacle, your mindset kicks in. Do you retreat and defend that fixed sense of self, or do you lean in and use the experience to grow?
And the really powerful part of Dweck's message is you can change this, right? You're not stuck with one mindset forever.
Absolutely not. That's the most hopeful part. This mental operating system can be updated. Anyone can cultivate a growth mindset.
Okay, so let's get practical. For someone listening who recognizes that fixed mindset voice in their head, who wants to shift towards seeing effort as a tool, not a threat, what does Dweck suggest? What are the actual steps? She lays out a pretty clear four-step process. It starts with something that sounds simple but is actually quite hard. Recognition. Recognizing what specifically?
Recognizing that internal fixed mindset voice, that little narrator in your head that says things like, don't even try that, you'll just embarrass yourself. Or, see, I knew this was too hard for you. Or maybe, they only succeeded because they're naturally talented, unlike me. You have to catch that voice, become aware of it, and maybe even give it a name. Understand it's just one perspective, a fixed one, not the objective truth.
Okay, so step one is awareness. Hearing that negative, limiting script, then what?
Step two is consciously choosing a different interpretation, replacement. You actively challenge that fixed mindset script and substitute it with a growth-oriented one.
So like arguing with yourself.
In a way, yes. When that voice says, I can't do this, you deliberately counter it with something like, okay, this is challenging and maybe I won't get it right away, but I can learn it. What specific steps or strategies do I need? You shift the focus from the fear of the outcome to the process, the learning, the effort involved.
That makes sense. Then the third step, the reward strategy. This one feels different, especially for how we usually think about achievement. Rewarding progress, not just the win.
Exactly. This is about intentionally shifting what you praise, both in yourself and others. We're so conditioned to reward the A+A, the finished product, the sales target hit. But a growth mindset approach means you also deliberately acknowledge and reward the effort, the strategies tried, the persistence shown, the learning gained, even if the final outcome wasn't perfect.
So you might praise a team for the innovative approach they took to a hard problem, even if they didn't quite solve it yet.
Precisely. You're reinforcing the value of the process that leads to capability.
Yeah.
It tells your brain, hey, the work itself, the learning, the trying, that's what counts.
That really changes the dynamic, doesn't it? It lowers the fear of failure because the effort itself is valued. It does. Which leads right into the fourth and final step, embracing. You have to actively start seeking out challenges, not avoiding them. Lean into the discomfort.
Yes. Seek out situations where you might fail, where you will be stretched. Actively ask for constructive criticism. See it as valuable data, not judgment. Take on that project that seems a bit scary. The fixed mindset runs from criticism and difficulty. The growth mindset understands that's where the real learning happens. It hunts for that feedback. So those 4 steps. Recognize the fixed voice. Replace the script, reward the effort and process, and embrace the challenge. That's a concrete path. It is. And underlying all this are some really profound shifts in thinking, like internalizing Dweck's point that failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of success. It's necessary feedback.
Yeah, that's a big one. And for anyone listening who feels like they just weren't born with the gift for something coding, public speaking, whatever it is, maybe the most powerful idea is reframing talent itself. Effort is what makes you smart or talented. That puts the power back in your hands, doesn't it?
Completely. It suggests your potential isn't some fixed ceiling. It's related to the quality and quantity of effort you're willing to invest intelligently. And as Dweck says, the view you adopt for yourself profoundly affects the way you lead your life. It's not about your innate traits nearly as much as it's about the framework you choose to operate within. So what does this all mean for you, the listener, based on these sources? It boils down to this. The gap between feeling stuck and actually realizing your potential often isn't about raw talent. It's about whether you see your abilities as set in stone or as skills you can actively cultivate. Right, so building on that, maybe here's a final thought to chew on. If effort is really what builds talent and intelligence, think about one specific activity or challenge you tend to shy away from, something you avoid because you tell yourself, oh, I'm just not naturally good at that. Maybe it's speaking up in meetings, maybe it's trying a new creative hobby, maybe it's tackling your finances head on. What if this week you decided to embrace that specific challenge, not aiming for perfection, but purely for the sake of putting in the effort, trying new strategies, and learning from the struggle, knowing that any failure along the way isn't the end, but actually part of your path to getting better? What could you learn?
That's a challenge worth considering. Thank you for sharing the sources for this deep dive into the psychology of potential. Catch you next time.